There we go. All right, now I got it recording. What was I saying? Oh, the silent meditation. Okay, so um, if anybody has any friends or family who have never meditated, maybe they're curious, this is a great way for them to learn because it's not real heavy Buddhism. It's just meditation. I mean, a Christian, a Jewish person, a Muslim, anybody could come, a Hindu, anybody could come to this and get something out of it. So if anybody has friends or family that suffer from anxiety and they want to learn how to meditate, I'm more than happy at the beginning of the class to give a brief tutorial. So Monday through Friday, 8 a.m., you guys are all totally welcome. On Sundays, there's two wonderful courses. One is, I think it's 11 a.m., and you can check the schedule on the IBC website. I think 11 a.m. is Intro to Buddhism. 1 p.m. is Geshe Zangpo. And I think Mark is doing course 2 through 5 right now. And the 11 a.m., by the way, is led by Andy Hoffman. So he went through Mark's Geshe Zangpo and basically like kind of mastered the content. So now he's teaching Intro to Buddhism. That's at 11 a.m. On Sunday. I believe it's 11. And then at 3:15, Geshe La is teaching. Right now he's teaching the Way of the Bodhisattva, which is the Shanti Deva. And Shanti Deva's text is like a core staple of Tibetan Buddhism. That's 3:15. He's teaching emptiness right now. It's very powerful, deep teaching, but everybody's welcome. Then, of course, Wednesday night prayers and chanting at 6:30. So does anybody have any questions about the activities or comments? Okay, all good. So that's the activities. We warmly welcome everybody. By the way, guys, I'm on the board at the Indiana Buddhist Center, and so if anybody has feedback about the center in general or ideas, we're very open. So please let me know. Also, if anybody's interested in volunteering, we welcome you with open arms. So just keep that in the back of your mind. All right. So what is Lojong? There's a bunch of really detailed descriptions of Lojong. This simple sort of explanation is it's mind training or thought transformation. But I also like this other definition, cleansing or purification, as in purifying one's mind of craving, hatred, and delusion. Now, when you see that craving, hatred, and delusion, this is called the three poisons. Some of you may already know what the three poisons are. Another way is of describing the same three things is desire, aversion, and ignorance. Okay, desire is just simply wanting something. Aversion is simply not wanting something, pushing it away, right? And by the way, when we say desire, the way that it's described in Buddhism as the three poisons, sometimes people say, hey, isn't desire sometimes good? Like I have desire to practice Dharma. That is a positive type of what I would call aspiration. I wouldn't use the word desire because Buddhism has this, the word desire is kind of a sticky, negative kind of desire attachment. You're kind of locked into prison because you're wanting this thing and you can't let go, right? And every one of us know that really well, way more than we want to know. But this cleansing or purification of the mind that is locked into desire, aversion, and ignorance, that's what Lojong's about. And it's such a beautiful, beautiful genre of Tibetan teachings. And I'm really grateful that we have access. In the old days in Tibet, way back, 1,000 years ago, in order to gain access to these teachings, you had to undergo the Lam Rim, which is like the foundational stepwise progression of teachings. And then once you kind of went through Lam Rim, you could then attend Lojong teachings. For us, it's nowadays you can just log in and receive Dharma. You can go to the Apple bookstore, the Amazon bookstore, and receive Dharma. So we're very blessed. And don't forget to sort of have that gratitude in your heart, because for us in 2021, it's so easy to get to go and buy a book. Whereas back in the old days, I have to imagine A lot of these people in old Tibet were walking over very dangerous mountain passes to go and get teachings, you know? So don't take it for granted. We're very, very blessed. And this is a once in a lifetime opportunity for us to practice these very, very meaningful teachings. Okay. Any questions so far? Or are you guys good? I can't see everybody's faces, so.
We're good. Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you.
Awesome. Just so you guys know, I kind of don't like just teaching. I like interacting, because I know when I'm attend to teaching, I hate just sitting there because I always want to interact. So if any of you guys want to be interactive, I'm more than welcome you to do it. Not that you have to. I mean, you can just listen. It's totally cool. But please, I welcome any interaction. All right? Cool?
Yes.
Huge. Thank you guys. Thank you guys. So do we need Lojong? That's the question. So kind of going back to my slide. Originally, I had this question of why do we need Lojong? And then I was like, wait, don't make an assumption. Maybe we don't need Lojong. So do we? So you guys see I have Y crossed out, right? So
we don't see it.
Oh yeah,
it's not
yeah.
up anymore.
My fault. I forgot to reshare. Let me reshare. So I'm in Zoom like 8 hours a day. You would think I had it mastered by now. All right, here we go.
I know just how you feel as a teacher.
Yeah, you're in Zoom all the time, right? With the students nowadays?
Yeah, with teams.
Yeah, that's awesome. Keeping them safe and keeping the COVID away as much as possible, right?
Yeah.
All right, great. So do we need Lojong? Do we need thought transformation, right? Says who? Who says we need it? Prove it. And I'm kind of saying this to myself, right? Of course, I'm facilitating this class along with you, my Dharma friends, my beautiful Dharma compatriots. I'm leading this class or facilitating it or going through it with you. So I believe in Lojong, but that doesn't mean that we all need it, right? So when I say prove it here, this is actually very meaningful, because when we think about the Buddha, what he said was beautiful, amazing, extraordinary, abnormal. And what I'm talking about is he said, don't take my teachings on blind faith. It's like, whoa, because you look at all these other religions and there's a lot of, there's a lot of very rigid, ironclad teachings, right? From other traditions, where there are certain beliefs that if you don't sort of follow the teaching, you'll be penalized, or, I mean, in some cases, there, as we know, even now, you go to certain parts of the world, and you're not really free to practice any religion you want. There's a lot of pressure and ideology that kind of prohibits that. So I really think it's beautiful and precious that the Buddha said, don't take my teachings on blind faith. Analyze, examine, contemplate the teaching and see, does it make sense? Do I really legitimately believe what they're saying? So I believe that if I'm going to make a statement like we need Lojong, then I have the burden of proof. I'm like when there's a court case, the prosecutor, the burden of proof falls on the prosecutor, right? Because we're all assumed to be innocent until proven guilty in our legal system. So, which is not always the case if you really want to know the truth, but I don't want to get into that because then I'll blab my mouth all day about non-Dharma stuff. So do we need Lojong? So that's the question that I want to talk about, okay? And the burden of proof's on me to present a logical, coherent, meaningful hypothesis for you all to examine and say, do we need this, right? So now, as I make this statement that we need Lojong, we need thought transformation, we need to purify our minds of desire, aversion, and ignorance. That's my hypothesis. Why do I say that? Okay. So without, just a very simple, direct kind of, plop you over the head answer is that we're prisoners. Okay. So why do I say we're prisoners? Well, for a long time, I've believed that just from my own experience, meditating, contemplating the teachings that have been given to us. For a long time, I've really believed that each one of us is kind of in a conceptual prison of sorts. And the reason that I say that is because we live in this illusion of being free. We think, oh, we live in America, it's a free country. But see, the problem is that each one of us we're bound. We're bound by our views. You know what I mean? Does this resonate with all of you? Do you guys understand where I'm coming from when I'm saying we're prisoners?
Makes perfect sense.
Yes.
I want to look at you guys because I think this is a very important part of the conversation. So let me can you guys see me when I'm sharing, by the way, when I'm sharing my slides?
Yes, we do
Yes.
see you.
Okay, I can't see you guys. I need a second monitor, but oh well. So who said that they believe that we're prisoners? Is that Stephen?
I did. Yeah.
So why do you say that, Stephen? Just out of curiosity. I think this is a beautiful point for us to talk about for a few minutes.
I think it's just the way that we're brought up in the world we live in, the things we see, the things we learn, and then obviously the experiences and things we occur in our life. I think that feeds into a lot of that. Not that we have to be prisoners, but I think until we do something about it, just based on all those factors, that I think it leads us into that kind of mindset where we're stuck and this is what we know and this is what we feel might be right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Anybody else? That's beautiful, Stephen. I really like that. Anybody else?
I would just say personally, I feel like a prisoner is like you're always in this state of I need to achieve this in order to be happy. And it's like constantly, like once you achieve it, then there's something else. So you're just never you're never content, if that makes sense.
That makes so much sense. I love what you just said. Oh, I got to get this, right? If only, right?
Yeah, perfect.
Isn't that beautiful? Because we were born in America, right? So we're so consumerized. Our minds are so consumerized. It's like, I mean, I can just tell you guys a little bit about me. So I grew up in Indy, and I played a lot of sports, right? So like I wrestled and I played football, and those are pretty aggressive sports, and I just remember like there's so much pressure on all of us. Now I'm 42, so I don't know how it is nowadays. I assume it's similar, but there's a lot of pressure to perform academically, right? There's a ton of pressure when you're playing sports as a kid, like, get out there and win. It's all about winning. And then I joined the Marines, and they don't really teach you how to free your mind. They teach you how to be a drone, like one shot, one kill was what we were literally taught in boot camp, like day one shot, one kill. Oh my God. So, and then I got out of the Marines. I did 4 years, and then I get out and I start going to school, really, like I got my grad degree and my master's, or my bachelor's and master's. And the reason I was doing that is back to what Kira said. And is it Kira? Am I saying it right?
It's Kyra, but
Kyra,
I
I'm
get that all
sorry.
the time.
Sorry about
Okay.
that. Kyra. This is like Kyra said, achievement, right? So I got out of the Marines and like I was going to achieve because I was running something. Now I didn't really understand it back then, and when I was in my 20s, I was running away from a fear of failure, a fear of socioeconomic failure, not having enough money, not I guess not being good enough, right? I mean, I really believed if you get a high education, you get a big house, and you have all this material stuff, I thought that was the thing to do. That's what I was raised to believe, right? Like Kyra and Stephen were saying. So I love this, the prison of achievement, the prison of if I get this, then I'll be happy. If I get this job, then I'll be happy. If I get this car, then I'll be happy. If I can just get the right boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, then I'll be happy. If only my brother respected me more when he saw what I did for him. If only this other person that I'm helping, if only they saw how hard I worked for them. And by the way, it goes on forever. There's just literally infinite how many conditional requirements we put on our happiness, right? And I think that's what this conversation becomes. It becomes a conversation about we are bound to conditions. So we're prisoners of conditions, and we don't allow ourselves to just be content. And I love the word contentment because happiness, it kind of feels like something that is conditional, whereas contentment is the opposite of happiness. It's the ability to have peace and joy without any condition.
Hey,
So
Jason,
yes.
I don't know if it's just me or not, but you're kind of fading in and out.
Oh, can you guys all hear me, or am I going in and out a little bit? Oh, really? Huh.
I've been able to hear you pretty well.
I can hear you pretty well.
Okay. Yeah, who knows? It's could be Zoom, could be me. Thank you though, Stephen. It could be Stephen's internet, it could be mine, who knows? But either way, if that happens, just you guys let me know. So this conversation of us being in prison is really important. And I'll just go out and really, I'll open my kimono and be totally, I'll be totally transparent with you guys. I grew up in an alcoholic household, and then I became a really hard drinker. I started drinking when I was 12. I don't drink now. I'm sober, and have been for a lot of years. But I used to go to a program which is anonymous, so I won't say the exact name of the program, but I'm sure you guys can fill in the blank. The program had a step. The step one is called admitted we were powerless over alcohol and that our lives had become unmanageable. And I haven't studied some of this stuff for a long time, but when I started coming into Dharma, and I had this epiphany again today and yesterday, as Dharma practitioners, we are basically saying, it's kind of like we're saying we're alcoholics, but instead of it being alcohol, it's everything. So we're sort of admitting that we're addicted to everything. We're addicted to wanting all these things, whether it's objects or positive reputation, support from people we're around. We're addicted to what we want, right? We're addicted to the things that we consider to be pleasant. And I'll share a slide with you guys in a second that actually gets into this. I really believe this, and I believe the Buddha believed it, and I believe his goal was to help us wake up from this kind of cloud we're in, where we believe that our happiness is conditional, right? I really believe this. So, very good conversation. Anybody else have anything to add about the idea of us being prisoners? Anything else? All good? Okay.
I do have one thing I would add.
Yeah, please, Lisa.
It just reminded me, I used to work as a CASA with abused and neglected children. And one of the things that really struck me was that it wasn't just that the kids were abused and I was trying to intervene in some way to be helpful in that situation, but the kids had a different worldview than I had about abuse and neglect. And so their ability to understand how harmful their current circumstances were, it was their normal. It was what they'd grown up with. And a lot of them didn't visit other households with very different examples of parenting and of family interaction and family dynamics. And so when you mentioned alcoholism earlier, it just reminded me of that sometimes our little worldview or what we're surrounded with is all we know. And that's true in the material sense, that if we live in a country where we see constant media representations of the good life means you have a lot of money or you have a lot of possessions or you have all the things you've mentioned, the right girlfriend, the right clothes. We only know what we know. So opening our minds up and taking a step outside what we're used to begin to see that there are other possibilities out there. And with Lojong, there are other ways of adjusting and shaping the way we think, I think is so powerful, because sometimes I agree with the idea you talked about being caught, trapped, but sometimes we don't even know we're trapped. We're stuck in it, and it's so what we're used to that we don't even realize how stuck we are in these patterns and behaviors and ways of thinking.
I love what you said, and I would just say you tied it so perfectly to the point that I want to articulate, which is that when I think back to the program I was in, the very first step is admitting you have an issue. I mean, most of you have known somebody that had some kind of addiction, right? Whether it was drugs, alcohol, I mean, there's all kinds of addictions, gambling, whatever, you name it. Or even being obsessed with a boyfriend or a girlfriend. Almost everybody knows somebody that fell into one of those, right? And in order for the person that's caught, I love Lisa's word of caught. In order for the person who's caught to fix their situation, they have to admit it. Very first thing is we have to admit it. So in Lisa's example, you're talking to a kid who lives in an abusive home or a problematic home, and they think it's normal. They don't understand it's a problem because it's all they've ever known, right? And you could say, to a degree, most of us, even though we're practicing Dharma, the question is, do we really in our heart believe we're in prison? You know, I mean, it's, I don't know if the question seems as deep to you as it does to me. You could say it's everything. You could say this question is everything for us. It is of paramount importance. Because if we don't sort of admit we have a problem, if we don't admit that we're trapped in samsara and that we are, even if we're practicing Dharma to some degree, I'm going to just go out on a limb and say none of us are enlightened. None of us are liberated. None of us, you know, when that person that we care about, whether it's family or a mate, when they say something to us that is offensive, right? I'm just going to say most of us are not absolutely free in that moment. Most of us are not full of bliss when somebody's telling us we're fat or we don't work hard enough, or, you know, pick one of the million things that people say to us. So why is that? Why is it that we allow our happiness to be conditional? Why is it that we allow our contentment to be conditional? Why are we prisoners? And again, kind of coming back to what Lisa said, and I'm going to go back to my slide, but coming back to what Lisa said, we have to decide that we have a problem. And so this discussion of, you know, us being prisoners, to me, this is important because you guys can see my screen, right? The slide, the prisoner slide. Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So I think this is a very important question. And I want everybody to think about this between now and next Saturday. I hope I'm blessed enough to have all of you join next Saturday. I want us to really think about this idea of us being in prison, conceptual prison. I'm not talking about physical prison. Most of us are living in some sort of a non-jail home materially. But you could argue that somebody in solitary confinement could be a million times happier than one of us, right? And why is that? Well, it's because the mind is what predicates, and this was kind of the Buddha's central theme, right? The mind is what predicates contentment or lack of contentment. It's the mind. It's how, and I'll hit this on some of my slides, it's how we perceive reality. It's not the things that are coming, right? A brand new, pick an expensive car that you like. A brand new Bentley might mean a lot for one person, whereas for somebody else, they might say, I'm fine, I want my used Honda, or I want in my case, I want my 10-year-old Chevy that I've been driving. So that's kind of the discussion that we're on here, okay? So really, I urge everybody to think about this deeply, because it's kind of like, do we fully admit that we have a problem? And this speaks to what's called contemplating samsara. do we admit that we're locked and bound under conditions that predicate our happiness? Okay. So what did I do here? Oh yeah, this is right. Okay. So we're prisoners, right? This is my hypothesis. So I want to take you guys through a few specific things. So there's something called the 12 links of dependent origination. And this was a teaching that the Buddha gave that kind of summarizes the wheel of life, okay? And it's a beautiful, beautiful teaching. It's very technical and it can be a little difficult to understand if a teacher isn't taking you through it. But there's a couple points of it that you can just kind of extrapolate out or extract out and talk about that are very powerful, okay? So when we make contact with an object of our senses, by the way, every one of us, the way we experience the world cannot transcend our six senses: seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, tactile, touch or sensation, and mental objects, which you call thoughts, but mental objects meaning, the voice in your head or an image or a memory or a thought, something happening upstairs in the mind, right? That's how all of us experience the world. So our six senses, right? The sense of sight, smell, taste, tactile sensation, sound, and then thought or mental objects. Those six senses have sense objects. So the seeing sense, of course, has visual objects or form as its object. Hearing has sounds as its objects. You guys know this. I don't need to explain it. But those objects, when we make contact with them, so when you're seeing consciousness or eye consciousness makes contact with a form, you immediately categorize it. It is immediately established as attractive, unattractive, or neutral, okay? You could also say pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral, okay? So I'll tell on myself here. I don't like onions. So I have a very sensitive nose for some reason. And so I really do not like onions. And I want to see you guys again so we can talk. So personally, I live in a kind of a big house. And if my mother-in-law sometimes she'll cut onions, green onions. If she takes the smallest onion and cuts it and puts it somewhere in the house, I can literally just follow my nose and find it. And I'm talking like a tiny onion. So for some reason, I'm really sensitive to onions. So it's funny because as we're going through this, we look at this thing, right? We make contact with an object of our senses, whether it's a sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, or mental object, right? And for me, just kind of, again, I'm telling on myself. The question is, could I sit down and eat raw onions? Okay, I want to talk about Dharma and talk about all this stuff and really bring the question of, are we in prison? The question, could I eat onions? Right now, I'm going to pass. So maybe I'm not practicing what I'm preaching. I don't know. But there was a guy, has anybody here ever heard of the 84 Mahasiddhas? It's an old Tibetan teaching. The 84 Siddhas or Mahasiddhas. So there are these 84 tantric masters way back in the day. If anybody's interested, let me know. I can give you the name of a book that I'm reading that's really beautiful. And I'm not very good at saying Tibetan words and Sanskrit words, but there was a guy, one of the 84 guys, I think his name was Luipa, something similar. And what he did is pretty powerful. What he did, and he lived in ancient India, and he was a layperson, by the way, not a monk, but just like us, a layperson. He met some lady who was kind of a realized being, and she told him, like, dude, you're totally, you have no clue. You're still addicted to food. He was pretty well studied, and He was a practitioner. She was like, dude, you don't get it. She was like, you're still addicted to food. So what he ended up doing was going to live near where these fishermen fished off, it was the river or the ocean, I don't remember. And you know what he did? He lived there practicing meditation. He lived there as a homeless beggar, and he would eat fish guts. So, and he used that as his practice, you know? And so when I think about that, you know, could I just sit down and eat raw onions? And I'm sure all of you have something that is your version of raw onions. Maybe you don't mind onions, but maybe you hate celery, or maybe you hate this or that, whatever it is. And it doesn't have to be food. Maybe some of you love country music, or maybe you love hip hop, but you hate classical, or you hate country. Pick something. Here's a good one. Maybe some of you don't like Republicans. Maybe some of you don't like Democrats. Okay, I don't know what your views are in this political landscape. It's pretty easy to say, well, sorry, it's pretty easy to say, you know, that other party, that other political party, they're just horrible. Whatever, Democrat or Republican, you lock in on a view, and then you say that other party's horrible, right? That's what we do, don't we, to a degree? And maybe we're not extreme. Maybe we're refined and sophisticated about our dislike for them, and we think we're right. But let me pose a question. Who taught you your political views? When you were born, the minute your mother gave birth to you, did you have a political view at that time? Anybody? Did anybody come out a proud Democrat or I'm a proud Republican? Well, you couldn't talk, but maybe you came out with like a hat that said, "Make America Great Again." Maybe you were born with that hat, or maybe you were born with a Joe Biden hat. Of course not, right? You guys know I'm joking. But if that's true, if we were not born that way, then where did our views come from? Where did our views come from? Now, a lot of the time, most of us are taught by our parents, right? Who taught our parents? Any guesses? Their parents? Safe guess, right? Then who taught their parents? Then who taught their parents? So then how far back are we going to go here to figure out why we're a Democrat or a Republican, or to figure out why we have, I mean, there are a lot of people in the world that have racist views. They have opinions about different types of people. So you really have to look at why we have these feelings, right? So going back to the slide that I was on this slide about, and this, I want to tie this back to the discussion about prison, okay? When we experience contact with an object, there is an immediate that object is immediately established as attractive, unattractive, or neutral. And you have to ask why. The short answer is we filter everything through these, kind of like you guys have heard you've heard the old saying, rose-colored glasses. Stop seeing everything through rose-colored glasses. You guys have heard people say that, right? Everybody sees things through rose-colored glasses because we are conditioned, everyone, we are conditioned through these habitual patterns, right? We're going to say something, Kathy? Or no?
Oh, I was just thinking that if we don't see things through rose-colored glasses, then maybe we see things through sort of dark-tinted glasses.
Yeah. Yeah. And my argument is that no matter what color the tint, whether it's positive or negative, it's a distortion of reality. And it is the reason that we're locked in prison, right? And to use to use traditional Buddhist language, we're talking about karma. So when we, I don't know, let's use an example. Does anybody here believe sweets are not addictive? Like for me personally, I'm 42, I've experienced over my lifetime, the minute I start flirting with and consuming desserts or Coca-Cola or some type of sweets, and I watch myself rather carefully, before you know it, I want to have a dessert a week or something like that, right? Has anybody ever experienced the same thing I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right? So this is a very good one to use. I mean, is anybody here immune from sweets? Some people are like, hey, I don't care about sweets. I need salt. I want Cheetos, or I want, something salty. I mean, all of you know sort of to some degree, either sweets or maybe you're kind of hooked on salty food. But I really like that idea of looking at, as an example, just looking at sweets. So the minute you take that, I'm going to tell on myself. Last night I had some lemon meringue pie or some coconut lemon pie. And the minute you consume it, you eat it, and then invariably a day or two later after dinner, you're looking and thinking about the same thing. So what happened? So you took this, there was contact, right? Your tongue tasted this food, and instantly it was established. So I'm looking at the bubble here. It's immediately established as attractive, unattractive, and neutral. What we're doing when we consume something and we create this attachment is we're creating a condition. We're creating a mental seed. It's a karma. It's karma. Anything you think, say, or do creates a karma. It plants a seed that will later come to fruition. Right? Were you going to say something, Kathy?
No, I'm sorry. I was just clearing my throat.
No worries. Totally cool. So when we eat the pie or the cake or drink the Coke, we're planting a seed, or you could say we're going into the prison cell and shutting it. Now, some people would say, yeah, that's fine, Jason, but I can consume the sweet and then not be bound by it. And there's this old Thai master named Ajahn Chah. Some of you guys might have heard of his name. And there was a student that came to him and said, Ajahn Chah, I want to be able to possess money. I think I can have money without being attached to it. Now he's a Theravadan monk, and the Theravadins they're really strict about the Vinaya, the Buddha's code for morality and ethics, the Vinaya. And the student told Ajahn Chah, he said, I think I can possess money without being attached. And then Ajahn Chah said, well, I would like you to eat a block of salt, a big block of salt. And I would like you to tell me that it's not salty. As soon as you can do that, I'll tell you can possess money without being attached to it. And I kind of laugh at that because I really think all of us are going to experience that attachment if we take in sweets. And by the way, please don't think I'm trying to tell anybody that you can't have sweets. It's totally up to you. Buddhism's not about trying to convince somebody that they need to follow our gospel. I mean, it's not about that. What it's about is, my job is to share something that's meaningful, and it's to help you and help me, help us together realize. We need to have a realization about reality, right? And so this all leads back to that prison, right? So the question is our view distorted based on our biases? Whether that's drinking a soda and having that pre-designated bias that we love it, or whether it's looking at the other political party and thinking they're bad, or thinking our political party's good. That's
Jason?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. I just had one example to share.
Yeah, please.
Our community in Lafayette, Indiana, hosts the Tibetan monks from Drepung Gomang Monastery every year or two.
Yeah.
And a few years ago when we were hosting them, one of the Indian restaurants in town were really excited that the monks were coming, and they wanted to offer them a meal, anything they wanted from the menu for the whole group of monks and the hosts that were hosting them. And so I approached the monks and said, you know, this Indian restaurant in town that's very authentic has offered to make this meal. What would you like? And I showed a menu, and, you know, a couple of them could speak or read a little English and some couldn't. And I just got a blank stare. And I said, no, really, anything. Don't be shy. You can order anything on the menu that you want. If there's something that is true to something that you like in India that they can cook for you, they're so happy to do that. If you see anything, any combination. And I realized afterwards that it wasn't that they did or didn't like anything on the menu. It was that they had so trained themselves to just accept whatever was offered and to not discriminate between the two, so that they wouldn't be disappointed. They'd really set up in their own minds that sense of deep gratitude and appreciation for whatever came their way. And so even if they did at some level have, you know, some deep down favorites of things that reminded them of something their mom made, or, you know, memories attached to it, they were very neutral about it. And I think that they felt like if they expressed a strong preference, they were making themselves open to the exact same pull that you described with sweets, that if, you know, that you're happier in life, you can find deep contentment if you can find a way to celebrate whatever comes, and to at least be open and accepting of whatever comes, rather than being caught in grasping for particular things.
Beautiful. Wow. Can I frame what you just said?
I probably couldn't even repeat what I just said, but it was a nice lesson for me. It was really powerful. And they clearly enjoyed when we got the food delivered, and the restaurant went over and above, just giving us some of everything. And they clearly, truly enjoyed the food when they had it, but they weren't going to go out of their way to grasp for one thing or another. They were going to enjoy just whatever was there.
Yeah. I love what you're saying about the openness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's really what this, I mean, you know, you have to ask the question, if you can be open, and I mean radically open to whatever arises in front of you in your life, would that lead to enlightenment? Think about it, right? The way that we produce karma is the moment arises for us, right? We have this cognized, or we have a habitual tendency to categorize it as pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. So everything that arises, we already have a bias to it, right? And then we categorize it as pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. But what if you could transcend that bias? What if everything that arose was beautiful, magnificent, and you just categorize it as your experience without putting it into those buckets? Then what happens? That's the question, right? Anybody need a 5-minute break, or we good? We can take a break.
We're good.
We're good?
Good.
Cool. Okay, good. So we're kind of on this thing about, you know, about prison. So I really like the conversation, and I really like what you said about the monks. And you made this reference to openness. And I think that's so important. You guys can see my slide again, right? Do you guys see my slide?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. I didn't accidentally forget to do it again. So we have this contact, right? Just kind of going back to where we are. We experience a sight, sound, smell, taste, physical touch, or a thought that arises. So one of our 6 sense objects arises, and it's immediately established as attractive, unattractive, neutral, or you could say pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. So we're filtering everything, and we're not truly experiencing anything. Nothing that we experience is experienced nakedly in its totality. Nothing is experienced in its infinite potential, because we have so many biases. We have karmic habit patterns that distort our view. They act as a kind of like these glasses, right? They're like these glasses, and you can't see what's in front of you. You can't see the form that you're seeing, the thing that you're hearing. You can't hear it for what it is because you've already decided you either like or don't like country music, or you like or don't like hip hop, or you like or don't like heavy metal, or you hate Mozart, but you love Bach or whatever, right? We have all of these biases and they distort us. And that's why we're prisoners. That's what prison is. Now, the next thing that happens is feeling, right? So you've got this object that is immediately established as attractive. And what does that lead to? It leads to a pleasant feeling. Feeling in the Buddhist sense is not like, hey, tell me about your feelings. It's not that. It's more like something that we experience. One of these 6 sense objects is experienced as pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. That's really what this is, okay? So these objects that we experience, the attractive objects arise as a pleasant feeling, the unattractive objects arise as an unpleasant feeling, and then the objects that are neither pleasant or unpleasant, neither attractive or unattractive, arise as neutral, okay? So this is very, very important because we're talking now about why we're prisoners. If an object arose and it wasn't, and we clearly saw it and we had no feeling about it, would that be peace and contentment? Would that be liberation? Would you be liberated if, to take my example, I could sit down and eat fish guts like that great tantric master I told you about? If I could sit down and eat fish guts, would I then be liberated with no flavor? And by the way, everything else that you ever experienced was like that, and you didn't have any grasping. It's a question to contemplate, right? Does that lead to liberation? Now, after we have a feeling arise, then craving comes. So when we experience an object, it's immediately established as attractive, unattractive, or neutral. And then, sorry, I had to talk too much this week, so I'm slowly losing my voice. So once the object arises and there's an immediate categorization as attractive, unattractive, neutral, then there's a feeling that comes up. It's either pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. And then finally craving comes in. And it's basically just desire and aversion. We're conditioning ourselves, right? So back to the Coca-Cola, the minute you taste that beautiful fizz, or maybe I could use the example of ginger ale. I love ginger ale. You taste that beautiful ginger ale. See how I talk about it? Call it beautiful, right? I'm already biased. I taste the ginger ale. It's established as attractive. And then that causes a pleasant feeling to arise when I consume it. And then I have desire, right? Now I have desire for this thing that I've consumed. And where it really gets problematic is grasping. This is really the prison. So grasping is a stronger form of craving. Craving is kind of like desire, and then grasping is a much stronger form of desire. And what grasping does, the reason grasping is so dangerous is because we have something called dormant karmic propensities. What is a dormant karmic propensity? It's like a memory or a thought. It's something deep in our mind that's dormant, meaning it's just kind of there. It hasn't arisen yet, right? So it's something, maybe it's something we saw or experienced when we were 7, and then it just kind of, it didn't purify itself yet. Because everything we experience plants a seed, right? Everything we think, say, or do, it plants a seed. You could say it stores itself as a memory inside of us. And then if it doesn't get purified fully, if it doesn't fully manifest, then it just stays there, right? So what happens when we grasp, when we get this really strong desire or aversion, is then it allows these dormant karmic seeds to manifest. So When they manifest, then it just creates more and more addiction, so to speak. Then we want the desire things more and more. The things that we're averse to, we get more and more angry, right? We get so angry. And that's why this is how murder happens. Because these cravings or these, something you have strong desire for or something you're averse to, you keep acting these things out over and over. And it's like a snowball. It gets bigger and bigger. Eventually you have no control. So all of this kind of goes to why I'm saying that we're in prison. This is a really good explanation of grasping by Geshe Lhundup Sopa. He ran the big monastery over in Wisconsin called Deer Park. He's passed away, but he was a highly renowned Geshe master. And he said that, this is his description of grasping. You guys can read it. It's the powerful form of attachment that we call grasping. It acts as the moisture that awakens and stimulates and nourishes the dormant karmic seeds that you've deposited on your mental continuum from previous actions. The latent seeds of past actions are always present. So this is what I was explaining a moment ago. You experience something, there's a seed. Anything you think, say, or do creates a seed. You could call it kind of like a memory or a memory that's stored in you. Memory is not the right word, but it's kind of like that. It's stored in you. So the latent seeds of past actions are always present, but they require the moisture of attachment in order to ripen and bear fruit. Once the two levels of attachment, craving and grasping, actualize the potentiality of a karmic seed, it ripens quickly into a resultant experience. So this is the discussion about being in prison, right? And you can call it karmic prison. So here we are, we all think that we're free, but we're trapped under a mountain of infinite karma that we've created in past lives, okay? So whether or not you believe in reincarnation, it's pretty much a fact, and there's a great deal of data that kind of supports reincarnation. There's tons of books and data on near-death experiences. There's some psychologists that have experienced past lives when they're doing treatment with their patients, when they do, what's it called? Follow the, what's it called? I forget. When somebody says, follow this locket, and it's going side to side.
Pendulum?
What was it?
Pendulum?
Yeah, follow the pendulum, but then they're putting you in a trance, but there's a word for it.
Hypnotism.
Hypnotism. You guys can see my brain is dead after this long week. Hypnotism. So there have been psychiatrists that have hypnotized their patients, and then their patients had brought up all these past life experiences. And if anybody's interested in this, I can share a book with you. And I'll tell you, when I first started studying Buddhism and Dharma, I wasn't sure about reincarnation because I'm a scientific guy and I kind of believe what I see and I go off of logic. Now I believe it. I really believe that we do reincarnate, and it's because there's a lot of data out there that supports it. So my belief is that we have a mountain of karmic seeds, habits, propensities that we've created in the past, okay? Not just in this life. Definitely we've done it in this life, but these are karmic patterns that we've been doing since timeless, time without beginning, or since infinity. So you just imagine you've lived a trillion lives or something, and you've continued to strengthen these patterns. And that's why some children are born and they're called a prodigy. They're a prodigy on the piano. They're a master pianist, and they're pianist, and they're 7 or 8, right? Or some child comes and they graduate high school when they're 10, and then they're a doctor by age 15. These are, you might say, well, gosh, that person was just born brilliant. I don't really buy into that. I believe that they had, a lot of karmic, they developed a lot of karma for those things. So taking a pause here, any comments or questions about this idea of us being in prison based upon all of these memories, ideas, views, going all the way back? If you don't believe in reincarnation, it's totally cool. But let's just go back to your birth. Everybody here believes you were born, right? Go back to your birth in this lifetime, and how many things have we stacked up? We have all these opinions and ideas. So does everybody kind of see where we're going by calling this the karmic prison, the conceptual prison?
Yes.
I do.
Any sort of additional comments or ideas about this topic? Questions? Okay, cool. I'll kind of jump into the next slide. I think I just have a couple more. Does it generally make sense for everybody? Yeah?
Yes, it does.
Cool. Does anybody see anything that we've talked about that's like, I don't really know if I agree? And that, by the way, that's fine. I want people to use their own mind to analyze these things. I don't want you to just be like, yeah, he's right. Because that's not what this is about. We really have to analyze, examine, study, contemplate, and then say, here's the data. I believe this, or here's the data and I don't believe. So is there anything here that you guys have questions, or maybe you don't totally buy into?
I had a question. Do you feel like, or anyone, that, I don't know if this is going to make any sense, but like the ancestral trauma kind of plays into that as well? I don't know if that makes any sense.
Can you say more? Like,
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when you say, does the ancestral trauma play into it, what are we talking about? Like,
Well, just like you were born and your ideas are kind of shaped by your parents or the people that you're surrounded by.
yeah.
I mean, like our ancestors and things that they have endured, do you think that passes on to, I'm just thinking out loud, do you think that passes on generation after generation, and then that also plays into the karmic? I don't know if that's,
I think it's a really good question. The Buddhist teachings on karma don't necessarily address this using the same language as what you and I are talking about now. But I have heard about this topic of, I've heard it called generational trauma, or trauma that's passed down generation to generation. An example is slavery. African Americans came to America, there was slavery, and there's this generational trauma. I think you would have to, I can't see a world where the answer is no. I think the answer has to be yes. Even, okay, for no other reason then, we are taught from such a young age, and our parents they're imbuing us with all the habit pattern energy that came from their parents, right? And their parents are doing the same. So I don't think there's any way that generational trauma doesn't get passed on. Now, how, is there something other than just them teaching it to us that we can't see, like some kind of energy or DNA? That I don't know the answer to. But I definitely believe that generational trauma is being passed on to us, because there's strong data on domestic violence, right? One of the parents either beats up on the other parent or beats up on the kids. Those kids, I don't know the exact data point. Those kids, the likelihood that they will beat up on their kids and their spouse is orders of magnitude higher than somebody that didn't grow up in that same environment. And then the same is true of alcoholism. If the parents are alcoholic, the kids are so much more likely. So you could argue that is the manifestation of generational trauma.
okay. Thank you.
There's a good book called The Body Keeps the Score.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's about individuals that have gone through trauma and how even if you're not consciously aware on a moment-to-moment basis of all that you've suffered through, that unresolved trauma still is trapped in the body until you get to the point where you can effectively process it and acknowledge it and release it. And kind of the next step at the end of that book is the idea of, if we can, from the time we're born all the way through the time we die, be holding this trauma physically in our own bodies, is it also possible that we're encoding this trauma genetically, that we're somehow passing it on to the next generation, the things that we suffered and that we haven't successfully resolved? But that book, The Body Keeps the Score, is really powerful. It's a hard read because it talks about people going through different kinds of trauma and how it manifests in physical symptoms and mental symptoms. But it's really powerful. And I think your question's super interesting because I don't know how much hard research there is on that yet, but I know there are a lot of people out there exploring it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Kyra, just out of curiosity, when you asked that question, were you kind of thinking, like, based on what Lisa said, were you kind of thinking like, is it passed on in our DNA, or as a, like, physically kind of passed on as a trait? Were you thinking that way, or were you thinking more behaviorally in what we're teaching our kids?
I think behaviorally,
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, just I'm new to this, so I was just trying to understand what you're saying, and then also, so I think more behaviorally.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think, like, a simple way to explain it is, like, you have an argument with somebody, you know, like, I'm sure you've had an argument with somebody. I know I have, more times than I want to admit it. You know, like, when you have an argument with somebody and then the feelings get really kind of tense and you both kind of raise your anger levels a little bit, and you guys, we both think that it's me versus this other person, and I'm right and they're wrong, right? Or I'm right and they're wrong. That's what we believe. But you have to ask the question: who's having that argument? The views that each of you has, where did they originate? So, so you could argue that each one of us has learned from our parents, our family, our teachers, the news, social media. So there's all these things coming into us, right? And that's karma. We're experiencing things. They plant a seed, and then we create kind of like a belief, an opinion, a view, and we think, my dad said, I don't know what's something. Okay, my dad said Democrats are good, and he used to argue with my grandpa, and my grandpa believed Republicans are good. My dad believes Democrats are good. So now he passes this idea on, and every day as a kid you're conditioned. And by the way, I'm just giving an example of Democrats are good. It could be whatever view or behavior that you have about the world. And then all of a sudden you're having an argument with somebody about this political thing, and you really believe that that's your view versus their view. But we're not understanding reality. Reality is their view and my view came from a million different places, right? And a million different people. And then if you just go back generation to generation to your parents, grandparents, great grandparents, great 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 grandparents, what if you go back 20 generations? The question is, is that where the is did 20 generations back, did the great grandfather times 20, did he beat his wife, my great grandmother times 20, and then that was passed down? I mean, that's the question, right? So when we think we're having a conversation, it's not us, it's not our view. We're totally bound by the inputs of our surroundings. Does that make sense, or is it?
No, it makes sense.
So we are sort of deceived. We think that there's an I, and we think that we have all these views, but really the way we see the world is it's a result of previous causes. It's an effect of millions of previous causes, maybe infinite previous causes, you could say. So great questions, and it's a great topic, right? I think I only have a few more slides. Any other questions or comments? from you guys? Is this all making sense? Is it helping?
It does, yeah.
Cool. Awesome. All right, so a couple more slides. Let me share again. And then let's meditate after this. Let's definitely meditate. So now, okay, we've had this great conversation. Jason said, hey, we're in prison. And then he said, hey, maybe I'm not right about that. Let me see if I can prove my hypothesis. By the way, did I prove that we're in prison just real quick before I go on? Anybody not believe we're in prison, or did the hypothesis get proven for the most part? What do we think? Not sure?
We definitely believe that we are prisoners and we are born to experience this and overcome it, is what I believe, but is what I've been reading so far. I don't know if you've read the Bhagavad Gita, but most of it, you have?
I mean, I have one and I've checked it out, but yeah.
Yeah, I have started reading it, and this is my interpretation of it, and we are born to experience this as humans. All the challenges that we confront are the same. Each and every human being experiences the same thing. And the path to enlightenment is what we were talking about, is when we overcome or give up all these addictions and all those things that tie us to the physical, materialistic part of us or the world. That's the path to enlightenment. And yeah, I mean, I don't have much to talk about, but I just thought I'd tell you.
Oh, I love that. I love what you said. That's beautiful. That's really wonderful. Yeah, it's like we're put here to learn and ascend, right? To rise past all of our selfish addictions, our selfish desire, our selfish aversion. Yeah, that's beautiful. I like that. That's really good. Anybody else? Thank you, Kavya.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so a couple more slides and then we can meditate together. All right. So you guys can see my screen, I imagine. Let me know if you cannot. So I talked about we're in prison. We're imprisoned by our own concepts, ideas, and habitual thought patterns. Okay, and so one of the most powerful ways to cut through this, in fact, the only way to cut through this is we have to have mindfulness. Now, I'm going to give you a couple of quotes here from Lojong texts. So Atiśa is kind of like the godfather, if you will, of Tibetan Buddhism, and especially he founded what would become the Kadampa lineage of Tibetan Buddhism, which was like a very powerful lineage. So he says, with mindfulness, awareness, and heedfulness, constantly guard the gateways of your senses. Again and again, 3 times, both day and night, examine the flow of your thoughts. So bottom line, the way all of this works is thoughts spring up. I'm sure most of you know about the voice in your head that constantly talks. You experience something and then the voice in your head talks. So that's basically a thought. So you have thoughts coming up, you have emotions coming up, memories. We have to be mindful of all the things that come up, because if we're not mindful, then we get hijacked, and then we're continuously locked and bound into this conceptual prison where we're a slave to what we like, a slave to what we don't like, and there's no contentment. So it all starts with mindfulness. And that's why meditation is a great way to strengthen mindfulness. So if you sit down and you meditate and you watch your breath, or you watch whatever your meditation object is, you'll see right away that distracting thoughts continue to arise. But the more you meditate, the more you're able to sort of be aware of all these thoughts that flow. So it's very important, if we're going to cut our karmic habitual patterns, all of our addictive behaviors, you know, whatever they may be, whether they're drugs and alcohol or materialistic, whatever they are, food, you name it. The way that we cut them is by being mindful, strengthening our awareness, just knowing what's going on with our mind. Here's another example from Thogme Zangpo. This is the author of another Lojong text called the 37 Verses of Bodhisattvas, or the 37 Practices of Bodhisattvas. He said, in short, wherever I am, whatever I do, to be continually mindful and alert, asking what is the state of my mind, and accomplishing the good of others is the practice of a bodhisattva. So once again, most of us are hijacked by our thinking before we even know it. And then we're off yelling at somebody. And then later we recognize, like, oh man, I kind of messed up. I shouldn't have yelled at that person, but it happens so quickly. The only way that we can start to make a difference is we really have to meditate, because if you don't meditate, your mind you're not going to develop the clarity and the awareness of your mind's functioning. Most people, when they start meditating, they think they can't meditate. They're like, I'm a horrible meditator. I can't stop my thoughts. And it's like, no, that's good. Now you see what's actually going on. Your whole life you've been in the dark, and you can finally see what's going on. We call this the monkey mind. The good news is we all have Buddha nature. We all have the potential to completely transform our minds. We are not concrete blocks. We're actually blocks of ice. And when the sunlight shines on ice, it melts. So we all have the ability to transform. Any comments or questions? Cool. So Tilopa was an old Indian master, and he was like a tantric guru. And this guy named Naropa was a scholar, and he was at Nalanda University. He was a renowned scholar, total master, memorized all these texts. And for some reason, he felt like something was missing. So he went to find this guy, Tilopa. He traveled who knows how far to find this master. And eventually he found him. And one of the things Tilopa taught Naropa was, you know, he said, son, it's not appearances that bind you, it's grasping. Cut through your attachment, Naropa. So in other words, it's not the things, it's not the world out there that binds us, it's how we respond to it. So somebody could come up to you right now and start cursing you out and yelling, and you could get really mad, and then you guys might fight, and then who knows what, I mean, maybe somebody's life could be ended. But there's another way. Somebody could come up to you and yell, and you could allow your mind to be free. We're not forced to do anything. We have the ability to cut the attachment in our minds, okay? And that's what Lojong is about. That's what the next several weeks are going to be about, is we're going to spend time. There are these beautiful ways, practical, beautiful, simple ways that we can apply tactical behaviors that will cut through all of our habit patterns, okay? And there's one more. This is a Zen master way back in China, actually Chan, with C-H-A-N. That's the Zen. Before Zen became Zen, it was Chan in China, which is supposed to be the word jhana, which is meditative absorption. So Seng was a Zen master. And the reason I bring this up is pretty much every enlightened Buddhist master will tell you something similar to what this guy's saying. So he said, the great way is not difficult for those not attached to preferences. When neither love nor hate arises, all is clear and undisguised. When he says love or hate, he's talking about desire and aversion, okay? So when neither desire or aversion arises, all is clear and undisguised, meaning we can see reality. We're no longer imprisoned. We're no longer locked behind all of this bias that obstructs us. We can see what's going on, okay? And then he says, separate by the smallest amount, however, and you are as far from it as heaven is from earth. If you wish to know the truth, then hold to no opinions for or against anything. To set up what you like against what you dislike is the disease of the mind. And it's like, is it this simple? You could say it is. You could say it's that simple. It's all of our wanting. So just imagine for a moment, right? Imagine you weren't trapped under wanting pleasant things and being averse or pushing away unpleasant things. What would life be like? It's probably hard for most of us to answer that question because most of us are not there. But that's what we're going to aspire to as Lojong practitioners, and that's what is totally possible. Each one of us can transform our minds. You know, you think about Olympic athletes. They're not born as master athletes, right? They practice over and over again, and then eventually they can pole vault over things and they can jump 20 feet or whatever. They can throw heavy things really far. It's practice. And so if you really want to, which I'm assuming most of us do, if we really want contentment, it's here for the taking. We can be totally free no matter what happens to us. Think about that for a moment. Think about being totally free no matter what, no matter who dies, no matter who divorces us, no matter we lose our job, we get sick. Imagine all those things, the waves of life happening, and we're totally pristine. Can you guys imagine that? Does anybody think, this isn't possible? I don't think so. Anybody like skeptical? It's okay if you are.
I think it's perfectly obtainable.
Me too. All right, you guys want to meditate?
Sure.
Anybody here, has anybody here not meditated before? Would a little bit of, would a very brief tutorial help, like a 2-minute tutorial? Oh, all right, I'll give it. I'll give you guys some unsolicited advice. So the way I meditate, everybody's different. So this is called half lotus. Half lotus meaning the bottom of this foot goes on the thigh. Sometimes I do that, but you guys can still hear me, right? Just making sure. Okay, cool. Okay, sometimes I do this. I can't do full lotus. Most women are much more flexible than men, but I definitely can't do full lotus. Full lotus would be the other foot is the same way as this foot. I definitely can't do that. What I normally do is I just take this foot and I put it on my other calf. And then this for me is a very stable base. Some people sit like just, kind of like this with their legs crossed. Some people sit on a chair. The most important thing is be in a position where you can have a stable base, have your back straight, and be comfortable, but don't slouch. So don't meditate like this because the energy can't flow up your central channel, which is basically like right in front of your spine. So that's really what you want is you want a straight back. And what with my hands, there's 2 ways you could put your hand on your lap. This is my left hand. You can put your left hand in your lap. You can put your right hand on top of your left hand and you basically make this mudra. Some people just do this. If this is more comfortable, that's fine. Elbows out. So you do want you want a nice, solid, wide base. So your elbows are out. And then you can close your eyes or you can leave them partially open, depending on what's more comfortable. And then the tongue goes on the roof of the mouth, kind of on the top of the back 2 teeth. And then what I like to do personally is, depending on where your mind's at when you start meditating, if the mind's really, if you've been thinking a lot and the mind's kind of hyper, I like to put my attention in my body before I start watching my breath, because the body is a very powerful way to just kind of relax into the present moment. So what I mean when I say I put my attention in my body, and if you guys want to join me, I'll just kind of guide us into the beginning. So just take a moment and take your posture. And if you could mute yourself, Jason, I'll mute you. That would be good. I'll mute everybody, actually. You're muted. You're fine. You're fine, Jason. You can go sit down. Yeah. So we're sitting into the moment, and just relax for a moment and feel your body. Feel your wherever you're sitting. Just feel your butt sitting on the cushion or the chair, wherever you're at, and just feel your body. If you want to, you might start by feeling the sensations on the top of your head. On your forehead. Your eyes. As you feel these parts of your body, completely relax and release the tension. Relax that area of your body and just completely let go. Behind your eyes. Your nose. Your cheeks. Look at your jawbone. Release all the tension. Just let it go. Lips. Your tongue. Your chin. The back of your head. The back of your neck. Just release all the tension. Relax. Smile a little bit if you want to. The front of your neck. Your shoulders. Your chest. The top of your back. The middle of your back. Lower back. Sides. Your hips. Your stomach. Just release all the tension in these areas. Your legs, your thighs, and the backs of your thighs. Just put your attention in these places. Your knees. Your calves. Your shins. Your ankles. The bottoms of your feet. Tops of your feet. Feel the utter relaxation of the moment. Completely let go, just relax. As you're relaxing, keep your attention in the body. And at the same time, notice that you are breathing through your nose. Breathing in, I know I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I know I'm breathing out. when distracting thoughts come up, smile and know that you were mindful enough to catch the distraction and then go right back to the tip of the nostrils. So we're keeping our attention in the nostrils and we're feeling the sensation of the breath coming in and the breath going out. And we're going to keep our attention there for the duration of the meditation. If you're having trouble staying focused on your breath, you can keep your attention on the body and the breath. Sometimes that can really help you to feel more peaceful. So as you're breathing in, you might focus on the arms, chest, your butt on the seat, all at the same time as focusing on the breath. All right. How's everybody feeling? Good? Relaxed? Calm?
Yeah.
Is that good, Jason?
Yeah.
Anybody have questions? All right. So we'll do the dedication prayer now. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow. And may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. And the land encircled by snow white mountains, the source of all happiness and benefit flows in your person. Kenrazig Tenzin Gyatso. Remain until samsara ends. Just as the Bodhisattva Manjushri attained omniscience, and Samantabhadra too, so now do I dedicate these merits to train and follow in their footsteps. As all the victorious Buddhas of the past, present, and future praise dedication as supreme, so now I too dedicate these sources of my merit for all beings to perfect good actions. All right.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Kavya. I don't think I have your email. I don't know if you would like to join our Slack group chat. I could add you if you would like me to.
Yes, please. That'll be great. Thanks.
Could you send your email in the chat directly to me?
Sure, I will. Thanks.
I'll add it for you. You're welcome. My pleasure. Did I forget anybody else? Is everybody else in the Slack already? I think I added everybody.
Thank you, Jason. This was really wonderful. Thanks for hosting.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for joining, Lisa. It was great. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Jason.
See you next week.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you next Saturday. Really appreciate you all.